Live.
Hey, you're lucky you have a cameraman today. Hey, John, welcome back. Thanks for
Welcome. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, members. Welcome to the first day of the JGO committee. I want to welcome all the viewing public out there. At this time, I'd like to introduce the members of the Judiciary and Governmental Operations Committee. To my right, we have Representative Tina Sablon from Precinct 2. We have Representative Ed Probst from Precinct 1. To my immediate left, we have Representative Blas Jonathan Acton from Precinct 3. We also have Representative Richard Lizama from Precinct 5, Representative Donald Magnolia from Precinct 7. We have Representative Vicente Camacho from Precinct 3. I see that we have a quorum, so I hereby call this first public meeting for the JGO committee to order. I'd also like to recognize the staff from our Legislative Bureau. We have our Legislative Assistant, Mr. Cameron Nicholas, and we have our Legal Counsel, Mr. Joe Tyron. Welcome. We have our Sergeant at Arms, I believe it's Ms. Sergeant Pete Tawai, and we have our IT Manager, Mr. Jonathan Diaz. At this time, I'd like to open up the floor for public comments. And I see that nobody is here in the gallery. So we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is to adopt the agenda. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there an objection? Sorry. It has been seconded. The motion has been seconded. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Today's agenda has been adopted. And at this time, if there are no objections from the members, and in the spirit of bipartisan cooperation, I would like to turn over the floor to the Vice Chair, Representative Blas Jonathan Acton, to preside over the rest of the agenda for today.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members. Just on the agenda, not purposely or intended, but we also had mistakenly not included House Bill number 22-7 that the chair had wanted included in the agenda. Unfortunately, we did not meet the 72-hour notice, and for that, I apologize on behalf of the chair. But moving on under new business, we have House Bill number 22-1, which is to establish the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands Civil Remedies for Unauthorized Disclosure of Intimate Images Act of 2021 and for other purposes. And I know that this is a legislation that has been introduced in the past, and this committee is going to be reviewing this legislation, and it's open for comments to the members right now. Any colleague that would like to make a comment on the bill? If not, we can move on. Rep. Tina Sablon, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and Madam Chair Lady. This bill, I would suggest, I was a co-sponsor of this bill in the 21st legislature. And as I recall, there were some comments from our community partners who work in advocacy for victims of sexual violence. And they had some comments that they asked to be able to make. And we did incorporate some amendments in the 21st that I see were included in this bill. But there was also a recommendation that this body consider inserting criminal penalties as well. And so I would recommend that the committee forward this bill for comments to members of the coalition, the Attorney General's office, of course, DPS, DYS, and TSS, and any other entities that the members would like to receive comments from. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Rep. Tina Sablon. Can I get a second to that motion and any further discussion on that? Ready? All those in favor that we send House Bill number 22-1 out for comments to the specific entities, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. House Bill 22-1 will be sent for comments. Moving on, now House Bill number 22-2 to amend the Commonwealth Code to authorize civil claims for child abuse, child sexual abuse to be commenced at any time and for other purposes. And it's open for comment for the members. So just a history, members. I believe, I'm not sure the exact public law, but I know in the 19th legislature we did pass this legislation and a similar legislation, and it became public law. I think this legislation is just upgrading the language of the public law from the 19th legislature. And I understand that there's the public laws around, and we may need additional comments from the AG's office. Rep. Tina Samar.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. It is also my understanding that there already may be a statute that addresses the concerns that are raised in this bill, 22-2. And so what I would like to ask is if we could task our legislative assistant to work with our legal counsel to review what the current statutes provide for. So just to ensure that we're not duplicating what may already be in the bill or sending out for public comments or for agency comments a bill that may conflict with current statutes. So and also policy, the current policy of the government. So I would first ask, before we send this out for comments, that we have additional legal review internally for the committee.
Sure. So with that being said, we'll keep it in committee and have our counsel and legislative assistant work on comparison of the language of the public law and the new bill 22-2. Is that okay with the members? So we'll keep it in our agenda, so it'll reflect under old business in the next committee meeting. Is that okay? Thank you, members. Now moving on, 22-3. Which is to amend 9 CMC subsection 2101D by requiring the motor vehicle liability insurance expiration to be consistent with the vehicle registration expiration and for other purposes. And it's open for discussion right now with the members. Rep. Lizama, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Vice Chairman. As we, rather, I already did my part by emailing this bill to DMV, and we'll wait for that comments if that's possible, and other agencies that may, like insurance, private sectors also need to be informed about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Lizama. Any further discussion on the bill?
I'd like to further add that we send this out to the insurance companies to see if there would be any impediments on their part when renewing vehicle insurance. And I would like to seek their comments on it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Any further discussion? No? So we'll leave 22-3 in committee. We'll be getting comments from the various entities. Is that okay with the members?
Yes.
Thank you, members. Okay, moving on. House Bill number 22-4 to amend the Department of Public Safety's time period to produce police traffic and criminal investigation reports from 10 days to 3 days. It's open for comments from the members. Rep. Probst, please.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, Madam Chair, and colleagues. I just wanted to ask, have we received, this is also for the viewing public, have we received any comments so far from DPS on reducing this, how it would impact their ability to have to produce, reports from 10 days to 3 days? Are they able to do so? Are they limited in manpower? I think those are concerns that some have brought up so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. You're aware this is our first meeting, so obviously we have not sent this out for comments, but if that's the idea that the committee would like to address and send this out for comments, we will do that. Is that what we want to do?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Rep. Maloney, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair. May I request that we also request for comments from Rhoda and Tinian GPS? Thank you.
Thank you, noted, Rep. Maloney. I believe our chair is ready with all her letters already for that too. But thank you. Any further under 22-4? We're good? Okay, so it'll be 22-4 will remain with committee and will be sent out for comments.
Mr. Vice.
15 months.
In addition to sending this to DPS, may I also suggest that we send this to the Office of the Attorney General?
Sure. Thank you. Members, any further areas that the committee sees fit that we might send it to, other than the additional ones that have been? Should we send it to the courts and see what their decision is? No, I'm just joking. All right, thank you, members. Moving on to 22-5, to amend 1 CMC subsection 20175 to include additional members to serve on the Planning and Development Advisory Council. It's open for discussion. Rep. Donovan.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just wanted to point out, well, this was also introduced in the 21st, and it was vetoed because I think the intention was to add 2 members of the legislature. But according to the veto message, it stated that the members of the legislature cannot serve on any boards. Section 11 of Article 2 states that members of the legislature cannot serve in any boards created by statute, but because PDEC was created by an executive order, I don't know, I just wanted to ask legal counsel, can members of the legislature serve in this board? I mean, we heard last Friday that the governor invited or appointed the speaker to the Economic Council. So can members of the legislature serve in this board?
Council.
So they cited the section 11 of the CNMI Constitution, Article 2, which does prohibit members of the legislature from serving on certain types of boards. And I would have to verify Representative Melonia's statement is correct, and I have every reason to believe he's right, that this is a board created by executive order. That may be some wiggle room and gray area because it says established by the legislature. That's the prohibition, and an executive order is not a legislation by the legislature, it's by the governor. So that may be a reason for this veto message to lose its legal justification, its legal support. This new version takes out that problem by removing the members of the legislature, I believe. So we avoided that issue. But if this was in fact a commission created by executive order, that justification for the veto may actually be erroneous. Does that answer your question?
Yes. So with that said, can we also, and this is up to the members, can we include members of the legislature as it was originally intended last legislature?
Sure, that's up to the members. We can do that. Council, sorry, Rep. Malonia. What was the man? I forget the title that it was called for the political status commission that was created by law and voted by the people to have the political status commission. The presiding officers of both houses were ex officials. I think if we put that language in there, ex official, it'd be different because they wouldn't be a voting member technically. If that's something that the members would consider as an ex official rather than an actual board member. If that's something that, is that Rep. Mongolia? And that would actually would provide a seat on the table for the legislature, either the presiding officers or his or her designee to that to the board, I guess that they're talking about it now. Is that something that would be considered? Right, I only say that because, I mean, this board might actually last for 10 years and it might not, we might not be around, so that it actually still protects the incoming members of the legislature from being a part of it. Is that something that the members would consider? And council, maybe that be the language to prevent any further veto or something like this. But Rep. Tinosplan, sorry.
Yeah, may I just request the citation from council for where the bar on members of the legislature serving on boards can be found?
It's a constitutional language, I forget which.
It's in the governor's veto message on 21 and 106. It states specifically section 11 of Article 2 of the Commonwealth Constitution basically prohibits the legislative members from being on members of independent boards and commissions established by law or established by the Constitution, just basically to prohibit them from wearing a second hat within the government. But as if, we verify that this particular board is not created by the legislature nor the Constitution, and it is simply created by executive order. And on top of that, it's advisory. I don't think that the spirit of the Constitution is necessarily being violated by us, by the members being on such a board.
Okay, but wouldn't this bill establish by statute this council? And so, therefore, members of the legislature who are currently in office would be barred under the constitutional
You're right.
Section 11, Article 2 from serving?
22-5, the current law, basically, the current bill basically amends the law. So we're not establishing the advisory council, we're just adding members to it.
Right, so this is a council that is established by law.
It's established by executive order, if Representative McWilliams is correct.
Oh,
Did I understand him correctly? Did I misunderstand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rep. McWilliams. Sorry, Rep. Tina? You too, Rep.
Yes, I yield.
Let me verify that 1 CMC section 20175, this is the Advisory Council Planning and Development. Let me verify if that's an executive order section, or is that something we created by legislation?
It's in the Commonwealth Code, so is
Right.
that?
So there's two ways the statutes and laws become laws or statutes. The legislature passes it, House and Senate governor signs, and then executive orders become law and codified if the legislature does not vote to object. So that's the other way statutes become codified. So an executive order can be codified when its origination point is an executive order. So this, like any public law, any statute, the Law Revision Commission codifies it as they see fit. So, but its grandparent doesn't necessarily have to be a House bill or a Senate bill. It could be an executive order that they codify. Let me verify. Okay. Yeah. So if you look at certain code sections in the CMMI Law Revision Commission code, the CMCs, if you look at the source, it'll be sources, executive order this and executive order that, or House bill this or Senate bill that. One of the three, unless it's by legislative initiative. Or, I'm getting too far afield.
True, counsel, but I understand the executive order argument, but by just introducing this legislation, we're accepting now that we're technically agreeing and validifying that executive order as an act of the legislature by introducing this legislation.
I'm just reading it as we're adding to a council that was established by a trio. We're adding to that council certain members. That's how I'm reading it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Unfortunately, there's 5 lawyers in the room and 15 different opinions.
Yeah.
So by introducing a legislation, we're agreeing to it. So we're adding into an executive order that now we're making it a statute as an act of the legislature.
Oh, true, but we took out the problem. We don't have any more representatives in the House
True.
and Senate.
I think, but with the Rep. Donald Mangonia's concern is he wants a member of the legislature, so maybe an ex-official can be added to it. So we will still have a seat on the table, but we're an ex-official member.
I understand.
If that's okay. If that's okay, Rep. Magnolia. So I understand what the argument about the executive order and by statute created by the legislature, but the bill itself, now we're honoring that executive order and then we're adding it and making it as statute from the legislature.
So, may I?
Sure, Rep. Tina.
So I'm looking at 1 CMC, section 2175, and according to the law revision, the source for this section is Public Law 20-20. So it was established by statute. And I guess the next question then is, can members of the legislature, under the prohibition in the Constitution, serve even as ex-official members, as Rep. Donald is suggesting? So, council?
I would err always on the side of safety and say no. Because it doesn't necessarily clarify what type of membership is permissible. It just says all members shall not be members of boards. It doesn't say except if they're ex officio. And I don't even know exactly how we're defining that term. Are they non-voting as ex officio? I don't know how we would, define that capacity. So to be on the safe side, I would say no. Yeah. So operating on the point that it was established by law, by the legislature, not by executive order, I think that this current legislation eliminates that issue by avoiding the membership entirely.
Thank you, Rep. Magnolia, please.
Thank you, IU.
Thank you. So I believe the chair had mentioned that she wanted additional information from OPD. So she's asking if it's okay with the members that we have an audience with the director of OPD so that we can, I know that this is a bill that was requested by OPD since the last legislature, and unfortunately it was vetoed due to members of the legislature serving under the board. Is that okay with the members to have an audience with the OPD? I believe the chair will be scheduling something maybe by next week.
Yeah.
No objection? Thank you, members. And like I mentioned earlier, 22-7 was inadvertently not included in the agenda for today, but we'll be addressing that legislation in the next committee meeting. So now moving on to 22-17, to amend 9 CMC subsection 2401 to authorize the Bureau of Motor Vehicles to regulate chauffeur licenses in the CNY and for other purposes. Open for comments, members. If none, are the members okay that we send this legislation? Oh, sorry, Representative Zama, please.
Thank you, Vice. My concern here, like the taxi drivers, they have to go through some training or what you call certification. So with this, they should provide the same training as a server to individuals that want to drive chauffeur. Hopefully we'll have that at NMC or some institution that will provide those trainings. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And just for the history of members, this legislation is not new. It's been introduced in the last 3 legislatures. One of the biggest concerns were the tour agencies that would come up with their vans and black their tints and come up with the mic and consider the tour bus. And I believe this is what they want, inclusive of like the limo drivers and all that kind of stuff, to get a specific license because some of them are tailoring to high-end market and they're paying the low-end price like everybody else. It's only good for. So without any further discussion, the agreement with the members would be sent. Oh, I'm sorry, Rep. Tina Sablan.
Yes, so in addition to sending this bill out for comments, I'd like to ask our LA if he could also provide us the history, the legislative history of this bill, since it's come up before, and I'd be interested in seeing the previous comments that may have been submitted.
Thank you,
Thank
Cam. Are you okay with that? I believe you were the JGO.
Permission to speak?
Sure.
In the 21st, it was referred to Commerce and Tourism, but it did not pass committee.
Okay.
That's, as for the comments and all of that, I don't have it with me. It's from the 21st. I don't keep a record of those things, you know. A new legislature, when a new legislature comes, it's like a clean slate.
Okay, can we work with the clerk, maybe possibly?
Okay, yeah.
They may have the documents were filed with the clerk.
Okay, I'll take a look to it, what I have, and see,
Sure.
you know, what I have.
Sure.
Okay.
Also, the 20th and the 19th legislature, they were sent to the committee. I'm not sure if it's Commerce, Tourism, or JGO,
Okay.
but I'm sure that they were sent to those committees. Is that okay with the members? And LA Cam will be providing us any history, should he have any documents that can be provided to us. Chair, please.
I have a comment. I think the current bill, as it's currently written, regulates. It says on page 1, line 10, BMV currently regulates vehicle operators licenses and vehicles and chauffeur licenses require the same basic requirements of operator licenses in addition to other requirements. What I'd like to see is a joint enforcement between departments who do have enforcement authority, such as Commerce, and maybe we can include language in here somehow to include, let's say, the licensing division of Commerce to share responsibilities, enforcement responsibilities with BMV or any other enforcement agency that could either revoke their license or their business license or their vehicle operator's license. That's just one comment I'd like to add in there. We need to start sharing responsibilities with other agencies who already have enforcement authority. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Chair. Any further comments under 22-17? Members, we're good? Thank you. So we will be moving on to the next legislation, which is 22-18. I'm sorry, 22-17 will be seeking comments, and with the assistance of Mr. Nicholas, we'll be getting some historical documents that we had from the previous legislature. Thank you, members. 22-18 to amend Division 4, Title 6 of the Commonwealth Code relating to the disposition of offenders and sentencing to provide criteria for imposition of enhanced sentencing of defendants for crimes motivated by hate. Open for comments. Members, please open for comments if there's any comments. Rep. Magnolia is the author and he's a member of this committee. And this is not a new legislation, Rep. Magnolia, please.
Yes, it was introduced last legislature, but it did not, no action was taken in committee. So, I mean, I moved to for passage, but we can send out comments to the appropriate agencies.
Members, if there's no objection, Rep. Tina.
Yes, so I am a co-sponsor of this legislation and a strong supporter. I do understand that there are agencies and advocates for this legislation who would like to comment. And I would note that we actually did receive calls in the Health and Welfare Committee as well, which Rep. Magnolia is a member, calling for more policies that are protective against discrimination for LGBTQ plus individuals as well as others who would be covered by this bill. So I strongly support passage, but I also think it would be important to afford the opportunity to our stakeholders to comment as well. So what I would like to ask the chair is if we could send this out as soon as possible to the agencies that we know would be interested in commenting. Thank you.
Thank Thank you, Rep. Tina Sablan. And can we get a list of the specific entities that we would like so that the chair can send the letters out?
Yes, the list that I had prepared for comments for this particular bill was the Office of the Attorney General, the Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, Pride Marianas, possibly, and as well as what the Coalition Executive Director had also recommended was DYS and PSS too for that bill. And there may be other advocates that the members would like to add to the list, but those are the ones I'd start with for now.
Thank you, Rep. Tina Sablan. Rep. Tina, sorry, Pride Marianas, isn't there another Pride Marianas Plus or something?
There's a Pride Marianas Youth, and I think they fall under the umbrella of Pride Marianas,
Okay.
but we could also send it to both.
Sure. Thank you. Any further discussion on the legislation? Council, please.
Yeah, I was just asking if Cam could just check the old standing committee report, because I think it's substantially identical to the one that was already.
21 or 2218.
Yeah.
No, there was no committee report.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Like you forgot that you didn't sign up on that. Any further on the 2218? Thank you, Council. None? So we'll be sending 2218 out for comments to the specific entities. Thank you again, members. Moving on to House Bill number 22-20 to amend Title.
Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Just
Under 2218?
Yes, under 20.
Sure.
There is one other organization that I think would be helpful to hear from, and that would be NMPOSSE. Since this bill does cover people with disabilities too.
How about the Micronesian Legal Services? Is that okay with the members?
It'll be,
Sure, Rep. Lozano.
and we also get comments from OVR and other agencies that handle those. There.
No problem with that. If that's a recommendation from Chairman Lozano.
I have a comment.
Sure. Rep. Ivan Chair.
Just wanted to ask the members, would you want to send this out for comments, or would you rather have a public hearing on it? To bring all of these people in?
We can do that.
Well, we could certainly have a public hearing, and that would, or we could schedule a regular committee meeting, have this on the agenda, give the agencies time to prepare their comments, and then invite them if they want to submit testimony. And then that would serve as a public hearing. So that's the other option.
Okay, thank you, Rep. Tina. I'm all for cost cutting, so that works better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Rep. Lozano, please.
Sorry. We're asking for public comments, right? And what about going to Laura and Tina?
I was actually just going to say that as soon as we're done going through the agenda of the legislations, maybe something that the members will consider is which legislation will be something we can consider for public hearings, so that we can put a package together and then go address these with the specific with the other committees that may have public hearings on their agenda, so that we can save on that. Is that okay? So we'll yield to that until we're done with the next legislation. Any further on the 2218? We're good? Okay, 22-20 to amend Title II, Division 2, Chapter 1 of the Commonwealth Code to grant the Commonwealth Ports Authority, CPA Ports Police with law enforcement authority. Open for discussion, and I believe Rep. Tina Sablan has a few amendments that we can address right now before we send this out for comments on the specific entities. Rep. Tina Sablan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So this would really be more of, a technical correction to the legislation. If there was an oversight in including language on page 2 and page 3. So on page 2, line 16, to delete the words and any, line 16 and 17, yes, and any other employee of the commission appointed by the executive director. So that sentence should read, the Ports Police, the Department of the Commonwealth Ports Authority, shall have the primary responsibility and authority to enforce provisions, and the sentence continues unchanged. On page 3, to delete the words or other person in line 1. So that sentence would read, any officer who is trained and authorized by the Executive Director of the Commonwealth Ports Authority, and the rest of that continues unchanged. I so move.
There's a motion has been placed by Rep. Tina Sablon to make specific amendments to House Bill 22-20 and has been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Ready? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Cam, can you please reflect that as a HD1 before we send it out to comment? Any further discussion for the members? Go ahead, Rep. Tina
Mr.
Sablon.
Vice, yes, have we determined who would be receiving this bill for comments?
I think that's where we're open for
Okay.
discussion for this. And just for the history note, a lot of our law enforcement have MOUs with one another to assist in ops and special assignments. So CPA happens to be one of those entities that are associated. Unfortunately, they don't have the powers for enforcement. So they're stuck with whatever they can do. And even at the airport, if they pulled somebody over, they couldn't do anything. They'd have to call DPS for DPS to move to the next level. If it's in the airport and something happens, they hold an individual or individuals, and they would have to contact customs to assist them. So this is the intent of this legislation, is to give them some enforcement authority, and we'll push on through with their other assignments in the future with the MOUs with the various enforcement entities. But I believe, I think the CPA probably supports this. I was really concerned that I didn't know that they didn't have enforcement authorities, knowing the fact that some former CPA employees ended up being members of the legislature, or vice versa, former members of the legislature became board members of CPA, and this concern was never brought up to them. So now that it's before us, maybe something we can ask CPA. They're probably going to support it, and we can ask all the other enforcement entities for their comments, if that's okay with the members. On the draft 1 version, right? So we're correct with that. Is that okay with the members?
Yes, so.
Sure, Rep. Tina Sablon.
So we'll send this to CPA and also the Office of the Attorney General for
Sure.
comment?
Sure.
And is there any other agency that?
Well, DPS has
think
enforcement,
DPS.
and Customs have enforcement, so Department of Finance,
Okay.
the Division of Customs.
Okay, so the agencies that they already have.
And maybe ABTC, I don't know if they have assignments with ABTC, something like that.
I also think Fish and Wildlife has enforcement authority.
Fish and Wildlife.
If we're gonna include all agencies that have law enforcement authority.
And that work with CPA Ports Police, right?
Well, it depends, because CPA has jurisdiction over the back of the airport, and Fish and Wildlife also has jurisdiction on the areas of the beach. So they may need to work together as well when it comes to areas like that.
Okay, I yield, thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Tina Sablon. Thank you, Chair. Any further discussion on the bill? All right, so with that being said, we have completed all the bills that are set for today's meeting. And now maybe a consolidation of all the legislations that we have in our committee. Are there any specific bills that the members see fit that a public hearing is needed? And if we do that, we'll work with the other committees to address the public hearings in the same time period. Any specific legislation that the members would like to have a public hearing on? If not, then Rep. Tina Sablon, please.
Yeah, I think what I would recommend is that we do the second option that I mentioned, and that is to schedule for a committee meeting to review the comments that have been received on the bill. So I would assume, Madam Chair, that the letters that you'll be sending out will also provide for like a deadline by which they can respond. And then as we start to receive those responses, then we can schedule a public meeting of the committee to review the testimony, invite them to come in and offer oral testimony or answer questions of the committee if they wish, and then we can move forward and decide to adopt or file the legislation.
That's good. I brought that up because I know that there's all the other members of the JGO committee or members of other committees or chairs of other committees that may have public hearings, and if they're gonna schedule public hearings, we should jointly do public hearings with the committee so that it's just one trip. It's gonna be cost savings. I know that our accounts are not the greatest, but we work with what we have, and we want to try to help each other out in cost cutting measures. So with that being said, Reverend, please.
We can include 2118 if the members don't object. Well, at least with the hate crime.
2218.
Yeah. At least, well, as Chair for Ways and Means, I hope to have these budget hearings at least on Rhoda and Tinian first to allow all the committees to also prepare their legislation for public hearing and don't schedule it at once. That way we can dispose of these bills early on.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Any further under the legislations? Okay. I'll pass it back to our Chair under miscellaneous. Thank you, members.
Okay, does anybody have anything under miscellaneous to offer to the committee? None? No, I don't see anything. At this time, we can proceed and adjourn the meeting until the next scheduled JGO meeting. I thank you everyone for your time.
Second.
We're learning.
Thank you. Is everybody ready? All those in favor of, to adjourn the meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, please say nay. Meeting adjourned. 10:51.
Wow, nice. Yesterday's meeting was about 40 minutes? Today's meeting?
Now you guys gotta beat that time.
Wow.